Hello, and welcome to Home Space and Reason, a podcast about creating a home that thrives.
Hi there, I'm Christina Browning, your host. If you feel like your household frustrations are stealing away your life hour by hour, I discuss home functionality, aesthetics, and automation. With a bit of history and a dash of psychology, this isn't your typical house podcast. I am a realtor and a home functionality coach, so I geek out on various subjects regarding your home and yard, challenging you to think of your space differently to get the most out of every square foot. I pose questions for you to think through about your space and your reasoning. This podcast is all positive, making adulting easier one podcast at a time. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect, but you can still aim for your best every day.
Episode 32.
In this mini episode, let's discuss home aesthetics, specifically adding character or updating things like kitchen cabinets and bookshelves using temporary wallpaper. Note that this is also a renter-friendly suggestion in the event that you don't own your own home yet. Also, this is a concept to chew on for updating a space without completely overhauling it. When we built our home, I really wanted a different color island than our main bank of cabinets. But alas, our upgrades were already fast approaching $30,000, and I decided that it wasn't something I had to have, at least right now. Fast forward 5 years, and I was still toying with the idea of painting the back side of the island that faces our living space. But man, painting is so permanent. I mean, I know you can undo it, but it's difficult to undo if we wanted to return to stained cabinets at some point. So I kept stalling, thinking on it, rolling it over and over in my mind. Then I was paging through Instagram recently and I saw a post by Chasing Paper and had an epiphany. Why couldn't I simply use temporary wallpaper on the one side, imitating tile, which would add both the color that I desired and a pattern too? For just $175 and 4 hours of our own labor, we have a refreshed kitchen that I am loving so very much. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect, even with custom-built cabinetry. So our biggest lesson was that when we measured our island from countertop to the baseboard top, there was a variance of 1/8 of an inch from the left side to the far right side. So we had to cut the larger size and then trim it after hanging it to accommodate the imperfection. The Chasing Paper product is basically like a giant sticker. We peel off the backing starting at the top and gradually pull it down from behind as we work our way out, pushing the air bubbles out and smoothing it from the center to the edges. We were challenged as we got to the left and the far right side because we couldn't use a razor blade to cut vertically on the edge of the island without scraping the wood. We opted to tape it up with masking tape, so we kind of did it like a mock hang while the backing was still on it, so we could draw a vertical cut line and cut it before peeling the backing off. One person held up a large cutting mat against the wallpaper to hold it in place, while the other person drew a cut line on the edge of the back side. Sure enough, once we pulled it away, the top and bottom were not a perfectly straight line. So if we had simply measured it and cut it, it would not have been as precise. We have custom cabinets and they look perfect, but they are not actually, because there's no such thing as perfect, and sometimes things are off here and there 1/16 of an inch. We also put temporary wallpaper in the back of our built-in bookshelves many years back to add depth and interest. We love it, and now that 5 years has passed, I'm thrilled I could change it out easily and put up something different in there without repainting. Temporary wallpaper rocks, my friends. It's worth noting, though, that it does best on smooth surfaces, which means walls that have texture are going to be less wallpaper friendly, and you'll likely see the texture visible through the wallpaper. Since we did the back of our built-in bookshelves and the back of our island, neither were walls, so we didn't have to worry about the wall texture. There's no glues or mess necessary. There are several companies out there offering wonderful modern patterns and designs. Here are a few that sell it, although I'm sure there are more. Chasing Paper is who I bought from, Hygge and West, WallsNeedLove, Spoonflower, WallCandy Arts, West Elm, Tempaper, Blik, Wallternatives, NuWallpaper by Wallpops, Carter and Maine, and Kate Zaremba Company. Of course, I will put a list on the Facebook group page. If you're not yet a member, look up Home, Space, and Reason. We have a few extra bits left over from our main project and are thinking of lining the inside of a couple small nightstand drawers with it upstairs for a lovely little surprise inside when you open it up. I've also seen people put this in the back of cupboards that have glass on the fronts, so the pops of color offset the dishes and adds color to the kitchen. Now let's talk about what you'll need. You'll need to start with some simple green cleaner to wipe down the surface a few hours before to make sure it's dust-free and goop-free, sticky-free, grease-free, all the stuff. It needs to dry completely, like for reals. Maybe even do this a day before if you have the patience to wait. You'll need a long metal straight edge for cutting, an X-Acto blade that's sharp and new, and a large self-healing cut mat often found in fabric stores. I use mine all the time. We also ended up using masking tape for making sure our measurements were right before committing to taking off the backing, and we also used a thin Sharpie to make that line. We used a credit card a few times for pushing tiny edges up into the corners where fingers wouldn't fit. We also used a work light from the garage for shining directly at our project since there was some shadowing from the countertop overhang. Who do you know that might enjoy an intellectual and positive podcast all about homes and the act of living in them to their best and highest potential? Help me spread the word. And now for questions to ask yourself about your home space and your reason. Question number 1. Do I want a solid color, a washy watercolor effect, a subtle pattern, or a bold pattern? Stand back so you can get a big picture vision of the whole space, which includes the area you are thinking of wallpapering. Imagine a color there. What is the opposite on the color wheel of the other main colors in the space? For example, we have a peanut butter color leather on the stools at our bar, which generally lean in the orange direction. The opposite of orange on the color wheel is blue, so I knew I wanted to go with a muddy version of blue for my temporary wallpaper. Question number 2, are there other patterns in this same space or other bold areas that this would compete with it if I chose a bold pattern or color? If not, absolutely add some personality to your space. Remember the matchy-matchy is not a thing, episode 20? Re-listen to it if you need to. Make sure you aren't only using a couple colors in your space. Even if they're muted or muddy, you'll want to add depth by using more than two. Don't rush to choose. They don't have to be traditional colors. Look to nature for inspiration. Look to Instagram and Pinterest. Spend some time on the Instagram pages of the companies that I listed so that you can really consider what the best solution is for your own space. Don't pull the trigger until you feel in your gut that you've got the right temporary wallpaper for your space. If you happen to know someone in the market to buy or sell a home in the greater Metro Portland, Oregon area, kindly send them my way. The finest compliment I could ever receive is the confidence of your referral. Subscribe to this podcast and then do me a favor and write a review because it lets others know that this is a podcast worth listening to. Thanks for sitting in on this mini conversation about creating a home that thrives. I'll see you back here for the next episode.